The news is also live on Kasmi 107.1 FM and across the country at 3news.com. Coming up in the next 30 minutes. Interior Minister orders full-scale probe into alleged assassination attempts on Special Prosecutor Kisia Jabin. We'll bring you all the details on that. Also coming up, government spokesperson reveals President Mahama does not intend to scrap the office of the Special Prosecutor, at least for now. And much later on the program, embattled former Buffer Stock CEO Abdul Hanan seeks High Court ruling to unfreeze his assets. Thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. Now, the Minister of the Interior has initiated a full-scale investigation into claims that the Special Prosecutor Kisia Jabin survived two assassination attempts while carrying out his duties. In a statement issued today, the ministry said that it had taken note of revelations made by the Director of Strategy Research and Communications at the Office of the Special Prosecutor, Samia Piadako, during a Newsfire program on the 6th of December. Mr. Dakon alleged not only that the Special Prosecutor had escaped two assassination attempts, but he also had himself handcuffed and beaten by 17 police officers. The ministry says its initial engagement with Mr. Jabin indicates that the alleged assassination attempt occurred before this year. However, the ministry says there is no record or official report of such threat at any police station or national security agency. The Interior Minister, Mohammed Muntaka Mubarak, has therefore directed a full-scale investigation into both claims. The ministry emphasized that, quote, crime does not expire, unquote, and stressed that it remains committed to ensuring the safety of all personnel working in accountability and anti-corruption institutions. The statement added that the ministry will update the public as the investigations progress. Let's engage Richard Komado. He is a fraud and security consultant. Good morning, good afternoon to you, sir. Thank you so much for joining us. From a security and intelligence perspective, though, what immediate red flags do these allegations raise, especially given the absence of any official complaint or report? And I'll be grateful. I'm sorry, Mr. Kumada, I'll be grateful if you would kindly move away from the noise. We can't hear you well.
Similar fate somewhere 2019, 2020, when I survived two assassination attempts. So when I heard his communication officer said his life has been under threat, I was a little bit taken aback. If he has not reported, it's a different thing. But the Interior Minister saying it needed to be investigated, I think it's the right thing to be done. And in that regard, we will get to the bottom of it. Those who are after the life of the Special Prosecutor will be investigated, arrested, and prosecuted.
So the question I asked earlier was, what immediate red flags do these allegations really raise, especially given the absence of official complaint or report?
Because of the position he holds and because of the cases he gets involved in, the level of risks against his life definitely is going to go up. Considering the fact that his personal disposition and the exposure of many of the things he does are predominantly within the public space. So definitely some people are going to go after his life. What he needed to do is to work closely with the security agencies, particularly with the Minister of Interior. So hearing that the Interior Minister said the assassination attempt on the Special Prosecutor should be investigated, which is, I think, is the right thing to be done.
Indeed. How would you want the officials to handle this, especially when we're learning that this happened prior to, for instance, this government winning elections?
No, but for we in crime investigations, crime has no expiring date. I don't know which of the agencies is going to handle this, but if it is the BNI, we have the capacity of dealing with it. If it is the police, they will go after it, and they will need the cooperation of Kisia Jabin in this particular regard. Once they have his cooperation and the initial determinations were made and the investigation is set in place, they are likely going to get to the bottom of it. And if the threat still persists, they will advise him what to do. If the threat is curtailed, they will advise him what to do. But what is important is that you don't want anything to happen to him. you want to protect him, you want to curtail the threat against his life. He himself will also need to come to the realization is that the position you occupy comes with some level of risk, and there are some personal responsibilities you need to take into account, because your personal security is your personal responsibility, and that is the way it's going to be.
Do you have any suspicions that could be running through your mind because this thing happened last year and there was no official report?
Now, I suspect it's going to be about one of the high-profile cases you pick up, and the way it was handled in the public space. We at the BNI deals with a very complex, sophisticated case, and it never comes to the public space. And it's also a way to curtail the elements of the risks that comes to the job we do. But if you look at the posture and the nature of work the special prosecutor does, most of his cases come to the public domain, and it generates some level of discussion, and not everybody is happy with that one. So I suspect seriously it's going to be one of those high-profile cases you pick up that might trigger the associated risks of somebody wanted to take his life.
Yes, so perhaps the other way to put the question is it not suspicious that all this while there was no official complaint? I mean, a threat to your life is that serious, you want to report it immediately?
Yeah, that was his personal decision. And to some people, the timing looked a bit suspicious. But for us as investigators, even if it is 10 years, even if it is 5 years, once he made it known, the proper thing to do is to investigate it and come to some level of conclusion, considering the fact that people want him out of that office. If nothing is done about it, now that it has been made public, then political governance issues come in, because the Interior Minister has a duty to ensure public safety, and security lapses will have to be curtailed along those lines. So I believe that is the reason why he's taking the trouble to say, let us investigate it and find out the truthfulness of it or the otherwise of it.
Do I hear you say indirectly that there could be a potential institutional risks if nothing is done about protecting people in such institutions?
Definitely yes. Definitely yes. All of us need protection, especially those who occupy those sensitive offices. They need protection. But then again, your personal security is your personal responsibility. But the state has a duty and responsibility to ensure that we are all safe at all times.
My last question to you, how would you want the investigations, how do you want them to handle it, especially when we've had cases of mistrust?
Number one, they would need the support of Kwesi Ajabi and his team. This whole attitude of being antagonistic and thinking that everybody is against us and we are also against everybody, it wouldn't help in any situation. Once the investigation commences, then it means that he himself has some level of responsibility and has some level of cooperation to the responsibility of the institutions that will take the investigation. If it proves not to be cooperative, it's going to be a bit more difficult, even though they may ignore some of those nuances and go ahead with the investigation.
Thank you so much for speaking to us. And you had Richard Komado. He's a fraud and security consultant. We'll stay a bit longer on this because the government spokesperson Felix Kwachofosu says President John Mahama does not intend to scrap the office of the special prosecutor, at least for now. His remarks was in response to growing national calls for the office to be scrapped. In recent weeks, several MPs across both sides of Parliament have intensified demands for its abolition, citing concerns about duplication of mandates, limited effectiveness, and what they describe as a waning public confidence.
The office has been in existence for how many years now? Close to 8 years. Tell me what is really the achievement of that office. I believe that it is high time that this Parliament reconsiders its decision to approve the establishment of the Office of Special Prosecutor. I think that we should abolish it.
And if you recall, during the deliberation on the OSP, a number of us stated on the floor of this House that there's no constitutional basis. We cannot continue to allocate that huge sums to the same office when we are not getting the results. This is one of the agencies we should be looking at.
And you heard that interaction in Parliament on the scrapping of the special prosecutor. Let's now hear Felix Kwakye Ofosu and his response from the presidency.
The office of the special prosecutor has abused his powers in this matter. And I will not hesitate. I will not hesitate to say that this house, we created the office. And the office of the special prosecutor, if he continues to abuse his powers, then we may have to abrogate it. We shall be inviting him to come and brief the House the circumstances under which he will detain a citizen under such whimsical circumstances.
Mr. Speaker, the office has been in existence for how many years now? Close to 8 years. Tell me what is really the achievement of that office.
Complained about, which they turn a blind eye and a blind ear to.
Maybe, Chief Whip, you should add it.
And if you recall, during the deliberation on the OSP, a number of us stated on
public office holders.
When we are not getting the results, this is one of the agencies we should be looking at.
Let me say that, again, Ghanaians are free to run commentary on public office holders and what they perceive to be their outputs. So if someone is of the view that a similar treatment ought to be meted out to the office of the special prosecutor, they are entitled to hold such a view.
But as
a government, as far as I sit here, the one who will call such a shot will be the president himself. Because the OSP's office was created by law. So I'm sure a process to reverse him should not be difficult to identify. But as I sit here, let me indicate and state for the avoidance of doubt that I have had no indication or communication from the president. But I'm saying that in terms of the right of those individuals to express their views about the OSP and the functional necessity of that office, they are entitled to those views. The OSP was set up by law. So any move to the contract would have to go through due process and law.
You've been in office
if you let me land,
okay.
and it has to go through the rigors of parliamentary scrutiny. But the point I'm making is that as I sit here, there's no indication from the boss himself, the president, that he is going to take any such action.
And you heard the government spokesperson Felix Kwakye Ofosu speaking earlier on GH1 television in an interview. Let's speak to anti-graft crusader Vitus Azim. He joins us live on the phone. Good afternoon to you, sir. Thank you very much for joining us.
Well, good afternoon and welcome.
We've heard growing calls also coming from Parliament for the office of the special prosecutor to be scrapped. And then Felix Kwakye Ofosu telling us that the president does not intend to do so for now. Do you believe the OSP has failed in its mandate and perhaps, or is a case of political interference undermining its effectiveness?
I would say that the OSP has not met the expectations of most Ghanaians. And so, in that case, that's the reason why some people are calling for the scrapping of the office. But I think that if the office has failed, we need to look at the managers of the office. Why has the office failed? Are there no similar institutions in other countries that are working very effectively? So that's how I look at it. I think that the call to scrap the OSP is too premature. It took about 3 years or 4 years for it to get established. And you know that the first year, they didn't even have a budget. The second year, the budget was not adequate to start an office and all that. So I think that we should allow it a few more years to operate so that we'll see how it goes.
So you obviously agree with the president or the assertion coming from the presidency that at least the president does not intend to scrap it for now?
I agree with. In fact, I had made this stand clear on my TV. I mean, my Facebook page, and on some radio stations. I don't think that it's necessary to scrap it now. It's too premature.
What would be the implications for Ghana's anti-corruption fight if the OSP is eventually abolished without a clear or stronger alternative structure?
Yeah, obviously it will mean that there's a dent on our acclaimed fight against corruption. Because if we really claim that we want to deal with corruption, and even if the office is not delivering, we should look at how to improve the office so that it will deliver as we expect.
What about those who argue that perhaps it's even a duplication of other offices we have? Because I know that another branch of SHRAJ is to look at corruption. Also, we have the Attorney General, as well as Yoko and other agencies.
Yeah, but you know, corruption is hydra-headed. It's not easy for one institution to handle it. And I know some people were advocating for the separation of the corruption mandate of SHRAJ from SHRAJ and leave it with only human rights and administrative justice. That hasn't worked. With regards to the Attorney General is a political position controlled by the executive. So we would have liked an independent or at least semi-autonomous body like OSP to handle serious corruption cases, especially high-profile corruption cases involving politicians and government appointees. It is hoped that it should have the necessary independence to do that. But even if there are interferences, it will also depend on the person on the seat. We all saw what Madamido did. When he saw that there was too much inspection, he just left. So I don't think that somebody should sit there and be unable to work and blame it on political interference.
That also indirectly means that you would want perhaps the current leadership at the special prosecutor, that office, to change.
Well, if an institution is not working well, delivering, definitely you have to look at the management. And so if there's a need to change, you have to change. But not just change again like the president just handpicking people. We have to also change the method of recruitment of not only the OSP, the special prosecutor alone, but also some of the top investigators and prosecutors. There has to be a transparent and meritorious approach appointing such people.
You talked about, of course, you've talked about leadership, and that's my last question to you. You've also talked about results in the office. What other structural reforms would you expect for the office of the special prosecutor in case the government decides to retain it?
Well, the other thing we need to do is to see how best we can clothe it with adequate independence. And when I'm talking about adequate independence, it includes giving it the necessary resources to operate effectively. I think apart from the fact that, recruiting it through a transparent and meritorious way, we can now also give them the necessary resources, the independence, by providing the necessary resources to operate.
Thank you very much, Mr. Azim, for speaking to us.
You're welcome. And
you have Vitus Azim. He is an anti-corruption crusader. Some 18 minutes past the hour of 12. When we come back, we'll bring you some more. Do stay with us.
Hello, Ghana. It's a new year and Bill's Microcredit is here to support your dreams. If you're not working but want to start a business, don't let money stop you. With just your Ghana card, you can get a loan to turn your ideas into reality. Already running a business? Need more capital? Or are you a salary worker looking for extra funds? Bill's offers fast and easy loans with no collateral, no deposit, and no SUSI savings required. Wherever you are, whatever you need, Bills makes it happen. Call Bills Microcredit today. Call 0596-920-833 or 0302-200-390 and get started. Bills is licensed and regulated by the Bank of Ghana. Bills, financing your needs. Terms and conditions apply.
And it's here on the Midday News on 3FM 92.7. Our former President John Jacob Kufuor has opened up about the performance of the New Patriotic Party in the 2024 general election. Speaking to Dolores Frimpong Maso on TV3, the former president said he never understood the rationale behind the domestic debt exchange and the National Cathedral project.
2016 election, yeah, didn't know yeah, we used to do their campaign. Bibia na kofo yes positives nko.
Yeah.
Na po anu ko di binu nsam na afei.
E na bibi sa sense omo ba ye na afei power ni ko di omo nsam wie no. Wo hwe amamu a MPP as a party ebu ya wa wo MPP party President Kufuor MPP.
Ne shase no nanka ekofan.
Okay.
Da afei binu se COVID. Tade bi hu bi e ba no ka ho na afei ba ho no akasa Kufuor manage COVID na ye.
Okay.
Near me na but no am actually no and near man be casamity as an ameboa.
To say the
so to say bond market issues net by to say cathedral send esikukuru no ni ade no na fe yantimi anje.
Now, what Peneso say in Cathedral?
That consult me.
Okay, but the
cabinet. No answer about say Bibi Sakoso.
But what you say about see Cathedral? Now, when I say I did here now.
Me patcho. One more. UTS and the music. I'm with them because they be privately no more day.
Okay.
And bomb to Akofa as a government and as a day. But so to me see yeah. But we as a public resources no more day.
Okay.
And Kobubu Bangladesh judges near the team. But you ask no, I didn't see any mention.
And I didn't do.
And I be bit PDS, this way I could buy an man.
Okay.
Until now, you be brave. But Mr. Macam, Sabio, Marita, my Cocramity, Namishe. Until Sir Nadia Bakuswa, I am say. Osha say 2016 landslide near the winning star election. Nearby power. Now, 2020 election, no tensions in Yamabiaba, and a fee, a hang parliament here, NDC battery. It took just one vote, one seat in parliament to distinguish president only a majority, but now a reduced majority. Then 4 years later, last year, election, anyway, not just a Ghana. Electorate, you cannot take
them for granted.
It for granted.
And you had the former President John Jacob Kufuor. Now, with a little over a month for the NPP to go to the polls to elect its 2028 presidential candidate, former Vice President Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia still remains the most preferred among his contenders. According to the latest polls by Global Info Analytics, Dr. Bawumia had a 91% favorability rate in the last period of the survey, and with the election getting closer, his favorability rate has gone up by 1%. That's to 92%, a situation he described as positive. The poll also showed members of the governing NDC prefer and are rooting for Kennedy Ohinyejapon to be elected flag bearer of the position MPP instead of former Vice President Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia. Musa Dankwa is lead poster at Global Info Analytics. He joins us live on the line. Good afternoon to you, sir. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me, and good afternoon to you.
Yes, and indeed, I was just reading your latest poll and the details showing that Dr. Bawumia's favorability has moved from 91 to 92%. Statistically, how significant is this rise, really?
All right. Thank you very much for having me once again. When it comes to election, it is very important people view you positively. When you speak to delegates, whether they see this can be as favorable or unfavorable, the higher your favorability rating, the higher your chances of winning the elections. If you look at the polling numbers we have among the two main contenders, in October, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia was on 91% favorability rating next. And then Kennedy was on 88%. So you can see that Bawumia has about 3% advantage in that poll. Currently, Bawumia moves to 92%, up 1%. But Kennedy declines from 88 to 83%. And that means that Bawumia has about 9% lead over Kennedy on the issue of favorability, an increase from the 3% we saw last time. So that's quite significant. Now, this would eventually translate into vote, especially when it comes to runoff. Because here what we do is that each delegate is asked to indicate whether they see somebody as favorable or unfavorable. So every candidate is assessed by a delegate. So when it comes to runoff, those people who may be voting for other candidates but don't see you favorably will tend to shy away from you and vote for your opponent.
Now, having made that point, though, your data also shows that the NDC supporters prefer Kennedy Japan as the NPP flag bearer. I'm wondering what explains the quote-unquote opponent's preference and how the NPP itself as a party should be interpreting this.
Look, what we put out there is just the responses from followers of NDC on social media. And also, we also put out the views of MPP people on social media as who they want NDC to elect. As to how you interpret that, I don't want to sit here to give interpretations, but they have meaning. Some of which I know, but I don't want to interfere in the race at this stage. So I will reserve my reason to after elections of both parties.
But we have less than 2 months to the primaries. How do these findings suggest, how people or how the race itself really might shape up?
Kennedy must seek to recover the loss in terms of the favorability rating that he has suffered over the period. If that is not recovered, then I think it will be very difficult for him to win. But we still have about 2 months to go, and the race can be won by anyone.
And again,
but at the moment, Bawumia has a big advantage.
And again, if you can remind us about why Kennedy lost that favorability, those points there.
Look, there are issues in the campaign that caused some of these developments to be on air. Sometimes if you are working on a campaign message that doesn't resonate, people kind of get put back or put off with those kind of messages. So he needs to assess over a period what went wrong that may have caused this dip. And I think he has a research team that can do that.
Mr. Musa Dankwa, thank you so much for speaking to us.
It's my pleasure.
And I have Musa Dankwa. He's lead poster at Global Info Analytics. And that's it for the Midday News here on 3FM 92.7. My name is Beatrice Edu. Thank you very much for joining us today. Log on to 3news.com for more news. Have a good afternoon.